pretty surreal to be very, very close to the end of the project. When I think back to all the decisions, all the big moves that we made as a studio throughout the past 4 years, I keep coming back to this theme. If things had gone as I initially wanted them to go, we might not have made it. If we just did, from the very beginning, for example, if this was just an iOS game, the numbers wouldn't have lined up. I think the reason why we're still here, the reason why we're able to finally ship the 5th and final episode is because we've adapted over time. We've learned from our mistakes. And now is the time, I think, in the project, as we're getting very, very close, I mean, we're within weeks of final submission, to go through that cathartic process of looking back at what we did right, but really focusing on what we've done wrong and trying to learn from that. So yeah, when you ask the team what their strongest memories are of the project, and when they look back at the three and a half year development of the game, a lot of employees will talk about Thanksgiving 2013.
And we were figuring out how to ship our first game together, and for a lot of us, actually, it was probably our first game. We finally got to, I think, RC12, made it at like midnight, so, we're past the board. It was now Thanksgiving, and we started the upload. We were pretty confident on that build. We were still playing it, though, while the upload was going.
We thought we'd have, a perfect build, and then QA would find a last-minute thing. We'd make another build. We ended up staying up till 6 in the morning, taking turns sleeping on the couch.
I think there's 10 of us left at that point in the night, and no one wanted to go home. Like, everyone wanted to see it through.
I'm surprised most of our team members don't remember is that I had then taken the build down with me to Portland for that break. And I had called my best friend growing up, and I told him that this is what I've been working on all this time, and like, you should play Republique episode 1 in front of me, and you're gonna really like it. It did not go well. I came back to the office on Monday morning, and I told the team, regardless if Apple approves this submission or not, we're not done. We're working on this for another 2 weeks. I'm gonna beg for forgiveness from Apple. And to their credit, they gave it to us, right? But we worked for another 2 weeks really hard, fixing all these extra issues, bugs, extra polish, and did that really final push that made it, I think, a really special release as opposed to something that I don't think ultimately we would have been proud of.
For every game that we make, whether it's a new office or new employees, what that ultimately ends up being is a Band-Aid on an expansion that we're doing, whether it's moving to a new platform or upgrading our engine.
It seems like every single episode that we've shipped, with the exception of episode 1, which had its own challenges, we took on more platforms. So now we're actually shipping on a variety of different platforms, which for a team that's only 20 people, it puts a huge strain on the QA resources that we have, the dev resources that we have.
When we made the decision to transform the game from Unity 4 and Unity 5, that was a pretty contentious decision.
The idea that I had, and it seemed like all the stars were aligning, was that Unity was prepping their big release, transitioning from Unity 4 to Unity 5. And given our really strong relationship with that company, I kind of started to seed some ideas about, hey, why don't we be your guys' guinea pig? Why don't we release the first Unity 5 game by taking all of our Unity 4 assets and converting them all into physically based materials? And again, not only to foster this relationship with Unity, but again, to give us a really sexy story for the PC version of the game.
So the crazy thing about Ryan, cementing that partnership with Unity and committing to bringing the game over from Unity 4 to Unity 5 was that we had no idea if we could actually do it. Like, we had no idea when he said that. That was like really a scary thing to do.
Initially, my reaction was like fear. I mean, when you're in the middle of production and you're working on a stable engine, the last thing you want to do is switch engines in the middle of your production cycle.
The engine was not even officially released yet, so it was in like alphas and betas. It was fairly unstable.
And we came back with something absurd, like almost like 9 months of reauthoring all the content, and we knew we had to ship on PC within about 3 months. So we had to reauthor the entire game pretty much from scratch. The brand new textures. We had to reverse engineer a lot of our mobile content because we had to optimize a lot of it, so we had to figure out a way to get back all of our source content. Even to this day, we're about wrapping up episode 5 on PC and mobile, and the blessing or curse, depending on how you look at it, by having a single pipeline is if you make a mobile update, you could be breaking your PC, PlayStation 4 content. And then if you make a lighting update, you could be breaking your mobile content and vice versa.
It was just a huge, humongous task for the art team, who my heart goes out to them for having to figure out, and the devs as well, having to figure out how to get this game back on mobile when we shipped episode 4. And in a way, it was like doing that conversion all over again from Unity 4 to Unity 5. We were kind of de-engineering all the work that we had done.
But I knew that the team could overcome challenges. I knew that the team, that they're there to kind of balance out my eternal optimism. And so I think I got enough stakeholders to basically nod their heads in agreement that, yeah, we could probably pull this off if we work really, really hard. And that's just enough for me to basically sign a deal. That's all I need to hear.
I think one of the coolest things about Camoflaj, one of the things that I like, is that so much of our talent came, promoted from within. We have a handful of veterans on our team who've been really valuable, but a lot of the people that are in, positions where that might be considered like leads in other studios are people who started out here as interns, myself included. When I started here, I had no experience in the game industry. I had been bartending and waiting tables for 14 years.
As an intern, you don't really know that much about like the code base, and you're still learning, right? You're still in school. So you have to ask a lot of people for advice and guidance on like the best way to go about doing something in this foreign code base. But over time, you start to develop more experience, and you feel more comfortable and more independent. Midway through the project, we had one of our senior engineers leave the company. So then it kind of fell on me and another really good programmer, Eric, who also started out as an intern, to kind of pick up the slack and help ship the game. And it's given me a lot more responsibility than I ever really thought I would have had at this point in my career. And I've definitely developed, a lot of expertise that seems very surprising that I could have done this much in this amount of time.
I myself started here in QA. I did design on the last 2 episodes. There's a lot of ways that we grow in the company, but every time you grow, you're tested again.
I just think it's become part of what Camouflage culture is all about, is having a good balance of industry veterans and of young talent to keep everybody honest. And I think that they help us stay cool, stay fresh, stay hip to like what's going on, and also just be what young people should be doing, like questioning authority, I think, to a certain degree.
So one of the big challenges with episode 5 wasn't necessarily even episode 5 itself. It was mainly that it was the first time the design team had split up, and we were tackling both episodes 4 and 5 at the same time. So there's long periods of time where Sladen and I would be on episode 4, and Feji was kind of like the one-man show on episode 5, holding down the fort, pushing forward, the cinematics and the gameplay.
Really, the onus was on Feji to make sure that episode 5 delivered early on, and to his credit, he had an incredible scope for the episode laid out, from day one. Really, the big challenge in episode 5, from I think a design standpoint, was making sure that those 2 unique paths, those 2 branching paths that players are allowed to choose at the beginning, both communicated distinct, unique flavors of gameplay and story in each of them, but also felt equally satisfying no matter which one you took.
If I remember right, we had like the Zegger path figured out very early on, but we actually struggled kind of like for a while with the Mirai path, and that one kind of came online, I would say 3, maybe 4 months like after the Zegger path did. We always had it there, we always knew it was going to be there, but really like the whole process of investigating people and exonerating them for like these false charges Derringer had kind of like put upon them didn't come until pretty late in the process.
Leading up to the development of episode 5, there was a lot of heavy lifting that myself and Brendan Murphy had to do. And that's because, more so than any of the previous episodes, episode 5 had to connect all of these threads that we had been creating for the past 3 or 4 years. So it was a lot of meetings, dozens and dozens and dozens of hours, sitting down with Brendan and Nathaniel, trying to figure out how we're going to connect all these pieces. And then also from a design perspective, bringing in Feji to go, okay, what's even possible in this time frame that we're talking about? From a production standpoint, actually, from where I'm standing, episode 5 was probably the easiest, because we took a lot of the systems that we already had, a lot of the environments we already had, and then we just add a new fresh coat of paint on them. So for me, episode 5, I got to kind of look at it almost as a fan. I was like kind of excited that if I'm only even seeing it once a week, I can kind of just see how it's marinating, how it's ruminating, and becoming this thing that no matter what, it has to be awesome. It has to be great. It has to be a satisfying conclusion to this saga, not only for the fans, and the players, but for this team. One thing I knew for certain was that there was no world where we're going to ship a bad episode 5, because we owe it to ourselves after this many years to really put a nice bow on this whole experience.
You know, we'd had the vision for the final cinematic or something like it for a very long time.
From the very beginning of the project, very early on, we knew that that metamorphosis and the whole game was actually secretly set on a ship. And one of our big reveals was at the very end, you emerge and you realize that there's just ocean around you. But even in episode 1, players, if they're really attentive, can see a lot of the hints that we were giving in terms of the fact that the game was set on a ship. Not only like the layout of the ship, we actually went on a cruise ship for one night as the cheapest seats we could find, and took tons of pictures about how cruise ships are laid out, and we use those as reference, especially for episode 1. Some of the sounds of like the ship. So that was a lot of fun to kind of pepper in those things.
It all came down to some incredible cinematic work on the part of Ryan Fedge, some incredible animation work on the part of Caitlin, and some incredible voice acting from Dwight Schultz, and amazing performances from the whole cast. So really those final moments on that ship top deck are, I think, a slice of some of the very best of what Republic has to offer.
Getting to see it through to the end has always been just my goal from the day I started.
As I think about it, it doesn't seem real that the project's gonna be over.
It's bittersweet. It's familiar. It's a very familiar feeling.
You really have to stop and take a second to appreciate just how much we've accomplished.
I've learned a lot about acting and motion capture and animation pipelines and all kinds of things I didn't expect when I started the job. And so as we're wrapping on it, I'm just like, yes, we did it. We completed the game.
It was an amazing experience. I'm incredibly proud of Republique. I think it does really important things.
You know, I feel really proud of like what the team's accomplished, and kind of even on a personal level, having kind of come in, not having worked on a game before, and then kind of having all these like things kind of thrown on my shoulders.
At the same time, you're kind of relieved to be working on something new, because you've been working on this for so long.
And I've never really started a project from the ground up before, so it'll be a challenging experience, but I look forward to it.
I think the entire team, as tired as we all are, as exhausted as we all are from the experience of Republic, we can't wait for what's next.